If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. We have battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content every week. Thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by. This video is a deep dive on the Space Marine unit, the Infernus Squad. I have been using the Infernus Squad with my Salamanders using both the Firestorm Assault Force and the Gladius Task Force. When we take Vulcan Hastan in our list, the Infernus Squad goes up to 2 OC per model. They can be run in big units of 10, 20 OC with some surprisingly good close range shooting, once again buffed by Vulcan Hastan. Let's take a look at the Infernus Datasheet and then how the Firestorm and Gladius detachments buff this unit. The Infernus Squad has a movement of 6, toughness of 4, with a 3-up save, 2 wounds, 6 leadership, and an OC of 1. Ranged weapons, we have the Bolt Pistol and the Pyreblaster. The Pyreblaster is the main weapon. It ignores cover with the Torrent ability, 12-inch range, D6 shots, strength 5, AP 1, damage 1. For the melee weapons, close combat weapon, 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. We can run these in units of 5 or a unit of 10. The abilities, we have Oath of Moment and Incendiary Terror. Incendiary Terror, in your shooting phase, after this unit has shot, you can select one enemy infantry unit hit by one or more of those attacks from the Pyreblaster. That enemy unit must take a battle shock test, subtracting 1 from that test. The Infernus Squad does have the Oath of Moment ability, which will allow them to use the Space Marine Army rule. Oath of Moment, if your faction is Adeptus Astartes, at the start of your command phase, select one unit from your opponent's army. Until the start of your next command phase, that enemy is your Oath of Moment target. Each time a model with this ability makes an attack that targets your Oath of Moment target, you can re-roll the hit roll. If your army does not include one or more units with the Black Templars, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Death Watch, or Space Wolves keyword, add 1 to the wound roll as well. The Salamanders are not in that restrictions list. That means when we're using the Infernus Marines in a Salamanders list, we would benefit from that +1 to the wound into the Oath of Moment target. The Strength 5, AP 1, Damage 1 Torrent with Ignores Cover Pyreblaster is why I like this unit. Most infantry Torrent weapons are Strength 4, sometimes AP 0 as well. Even the aggressors only have a Strength 4 AP 0 Torrent weapon with Ignores Cover. Yes, they can get AP 1 if they are targeting the closest enemy target. There still is a hoop you do have to jump through to get that AP 1, where the Infernus Marines just come with that baked into their datasheet. Strength 5, AP 1, Ignores Cover gives the Infernus a lot more threat than it may seem at first. They do have access to Oath of Moment. The reroll hits from Oath of Moment won't help the Infernus Marines shooting. They have a auto-hitting Torrent Pyreblaster that will help when they do get into melee. When we use them in a Salamanders list, we will have access to that +1 to the wound roll from the Oath of Moment target. Now the Strength 5, AP 1, Damage 1 Torrent weapons with +1 to the wound can threaten anything Toughness 5 and under, and decent damage to anything higher than Toughness 5. We can run these in either units of 5 or 10. I prefer the big unit, but even the 5-man does have a place. More so when we bring Vulcan Hastan in the list, taking each Infernus Marine up to OC2 each. The 10-man has a maximum of 60 shots potential. Combine that with some characters to lead the Infernus and some detachment rules, this unit is cooking. Let's start by taking a look at some of the more powerful characters we can use to lead the Infernus Squad. There are many different characters that we could pair up with the Infernus Squad. These are some of the top ones that I like to use. Our first one is Vulcan Hastan. Vulcan does not buff the actual unit, it's more some extra melee and OC to an Infernus Squad when we do attach Vulcan to that squad. He does have 2 abilities that do buff any of the Infernus Squads in our army though. We could run Vulcan with company heroes. Either way, we want Vulcan in our list. His Forge Father ability gives any Torrent or Melted weapon reroll the wounds into one enemy target. Taking him in the list also gives the Infernus Squad models 1 extra OC, taking them up to OC2. That's why having Vulcan in the list is so important to this Infernus Squad. He doesn't actually buff the unit he's attached to, he buffs every one of these Infernus Marines in our list. Next up is Adrax Agatone. Adrax is our melee-focused Salamander named character. His ability Onto the Anvil will give the Infernus Squad's melee weapons re-roll the wound roll. 3 attacks at Strength 4, AP 0, Damage 1. It's not very scary though. Adrax will give the unit much more melee threat with his own melee attacks. 5 hits, hitting on 2s, strength 10, AP 2, damage 3, with reroll the wound roll as long as Adrax is attached to a unit. Adrax is not my first choice for an Infernus Squad, but it is an interesting option. Then we have one of my personal favorites, the Librarian. The Librarian does add some extra damage with its Smite Psychic attack. It also adds a 4-up Feel No Pain to Psychic attacks. The big thing he adds is a 4+ invulnerable save to the Infernus Squad unit. The Infernus are only toughness 4, 2 wounds with a 3-up save models. A 4+ invulnerable save adds a lot of survivability to the unit. We also have the normal captain. The captain adds some extra melee threat with their finest hour ability. Rites of Battle is great for reducing the cost of some of the better stratagems in these detachments. Both Firestorm Assault Force and the Gladius Task Force have stratagems that Rites of Battle would be very useful on. Last up is the Ancient, a cheap character currently only 50 points to lead and give an enhancement to the Infernus Squad. It also gives the unit an extra OC 1. If we do have Vulcan in the list, each Infernus Marine would be at an OC of 3 if they had an Ancient attached to that unit. A 10-man attached to an Ancient would have a very hard to steal 32 OC. It can also join Vulcan's 10-man Infernus Squad, plant that unit on his Seeker of the Unfound objective for an insane 42 OC. Not my first pick, but it is an interesting option. Any of those 5 characters attached to an Infernus Squad can make a very strong and very interesting unit. The Infernus Squad can embark any transport that can carry Tacticus Armour. This does rule out the Rhino sadly, but it does mean the Infernus Squad can be transported by most of the Space Marine transport range. Let's take a quick look at some of the more common transports used for the Tacticus Armour. First off, we have the Impulsor. This model has a transport capacity of 7 Tacticus or Phobos infantry models. Then we have our different Land Raider variants. The stock Land Raider can carry up to 12 Adeptus Astartes infantry. The Redeemer can carry up to 14, while the Crusader can carry up to 16. There's no armor keywords for the Land Raiders. You can pretty much put anything in these Land Raiders. Some of them do take up more transport space than others. Tacticus Armour only takes a transport space of 1 per model. We do have the Repulsor, which does have a transport capacity of 14 Astartes infantry, same as the Land Raiders. There's no real keywords for this, it's just how many you can fit in it. I also did want to mention the Repulsor Executioner. This is more of a tank platform, but you can carry up to 7 Adeptus Astartes models in this. Once again, it's not keyword locked, it's more how much can you fit inside that 7 transport space. That's just a quick look at some of these vehicles. There is a Space Marine transport guide on the channel, and I'll throw that down in the description below. Let's take a look at 2 of the Space Marine detachments I like to use for the Infernus Marines. The Firestorm Assault Force detachment rule is called Close Range Eradication. Ranged weapons equipped by Adeptus Astartes models in your army have the Assault ability, and each time an attack with such a weapon targets a unit within 12 inches, add 1 to the strength of that attack. Having Assault on these Movement 6 models allows us to advance and shoot the Infernus Marines, which is good since the Power Blasters have a range of 12. A potential 12-inch movement with that advance will help us get in range with the Infernus Squad. +1 strength if we are within 12 inches. Our range weapon is 12 inches. If we are in range to shoot the Power Blasters, they will have that +1 strength. Advance and shoot Strength 6 Power Blasters, I'll take it. That'll have us wounding Toughness 3 profiles on a 2, and those Terminator profiles Toughness 5 on 3s. If we do decide to join a generic character like a Librarian to the Infernus Squad, we can put the Champion of Humanity enhancement on that character to allow our unit to ignore modifiers. Most of the time, ignore modifiers really isn't that strong on Infernus Marines. Let's take a look at the stratagems for the Firestorm Assault Force and how they can be used to benefit the Infernus Squad. Our first stratagem is Armor of Content for 1 CP. In your opponent's shooting or the fight phase just after an enemy has selected its targets until the end of the phase, each time an attack that targets your unit, worsen the armor penetration of that attack by 1. This is a great stratagem to keep a big unit of Infernus Marines alive. Not as potent as it used to be, especially in the shooting phase. Pay attention to what can shoot the Infernus Marines. Use Armor of Content on those big unit wiping shots. The fight phase, it is a bit more rare to be attacked by multiple units. Something charges the Infernus Marines, use Armor of Contempt to help them survive the fight phase. Unlike the shooting phase, where it's a little bit easier to get multiple units activating into our Infernus Squad, where we want to use Armor of Contempt on the strongest of those shots coming in. Next up is Burning Vengeance in your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has resolved its attacks. One Adeptus Astartes transport unit from your army that was selected as a target of one or more of those units' attacks. One unit embarked in that transport can disembark as if it were your movement phase and can shoot as if it were your shooting phase. But you must target that enemy unit that shot your transport when doing so, and you can only shoot that unit if it is an eligible target. This can be used if an enemy infantry unit attacks the Infernus Squad's transport and they are within 12 inches to be shot by the Infernus Squad. For the most part, this isn't the unit we are going to be jumping out to shoot back. Hellblasters and Eradicators make for better units for Burning Vengeance. Still something to keep in the Infernus Squad's toolbox though. Next up, Crucible of Battle for 1 CP in your shooting or the fight phase. One Adeptus Astartes infantry units. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets the closest eligible target within 6 inches, add 1 to the wound roll. This is one, if not the best damage stratagem in the detachment. +1 to the wound roll will help push these from light to elite infantry killers. We do have to be within 6 inches and the closest eligible target. We already had to be within 12 to even shoot with the Infernus Squad. Getting within that 6 inches isn't so much of a detriment, something like the Eradicators where you want to stay back and shoot. Getting within 6 inches with the Infernus Squad isn't so bad. This stratagem is not something that makes these into a melee threat. Shooting, however, becomes much better. Pair that with Vulcan Hastan's reroll torrent weapons ability, very nice. Then we have Immolation Protocols for 2 CP in your shooting phase. One Adeptus Astartes unit from your army. Until the end of that phase, torrent weapons equipped by models in that unit have the Devastating Wounds ability. This is another great damage dealing stratagem. It does require torrent weapons though. Luckily, our entire Infernus Squad has Power Blasters, which are torrent weapons. Once again, pair it with Vulcan Hastan's Forge Father ability to give them reroll wounds into that one enemy target. That is 10d6 torrent weapons rerolling wounds with devastating wounds on 6s. For another CP, use Crucible of Battle for the +1 to the wound roll to turn the enemy unit into a flaming pile of ash. The last stratagem I want to talk about that does benefit the Infernus Squad is Rapid Embarkation. At the end of the fight phase, one Adeptus Astartes transport unit from your army that has no models embarked within it, and one Adeptus Astartes infantry unit from your army wholly within 6 inches of that transport. Your infantry unit can embark within that transport. You cannot target an infantry unit that is within engagement range of one or more enemy units that cannot normally embark within that transport, or that disembark from a transport this turn. And that last one really hurts this stratagem. You can't just jump out and then jump back in the same turn. This is a fun and interesting stratagem. The restriction of not being able to embark in a transport if the Infernus Squad disembark that turn does hurt. It really does take some of the utility out of the stratagem. If we do take a transport heavy list, there should be an opportunity to use this to gain some extra movement or protection. These are only toughness 4, 2 wounds with a 3-up save models. Jumping inside any transport will be safer than out on foot. The Firestorm Assault Force is a great detachment for the Infernus Squad. Many different ways to buff their damage output along with Armor of Content to help keep them on the board a bit longer. Attached to Vulcan Hastan or a Librarian is how I prefer to run them, or even no character at all. I have been using 2 units of 10 in my list lately. Vulcan Hastan is the key to these becoming one of our best anti-infantry units in the detachment. Going from OC1 to OC2 and a way to reroll wounds into one enemy target a turn, bringing Vulcan Hastan really powers these up. The next detachment I want to go over with the Infernus Squad is the Gladius Task Force. We still have the same army rule, Oath of Moment, that doesn't change, but the detachment rule is different of course. The detachment rule for Gladius Task Force is Combat Doctrines. At the start of your command phase, you can select one of the combat doctrines listed below. Until the start of your next command phase, that combat doctrine is active and the effects apply to all Adeptus Astartes units in your army, and you can select each of the combat doctrines once per battle. There are 3 combat doctrines. The first one is Devastator Doctrine. This unit is eligible to shoot in a turn in which it advances. Advance and shoot, as we discussed in the Firestorm Assault Force, is very strong for these Infernus Marines. Next is the Tactical Doctrine. This unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back. Last is the Assault Doctrine. This unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. Any one of these doctrines can be useful to the Infernus Squad. Advance and charge will depend on if we have a melee character like Ajax Agaton attached to the Infernus Squad. Advance and shoot is always good on a mid-range weapon to help get into the Power Blaster's 12-inch range. Fallback, shoot and charge is good for the obvious. Fallback from a dangerous melee unit. It also stops the opponent from consolidating into the Infernus Squad to tie them up if we can just fall that unit back. These are torrent weapons, so the popular combo of putting Fire Discipline Enhancement on a character, attaching it to a range damage to really buff up that unit's damage. This is a torrent weapon. We don't have to worry about getting sustained hits or lethal hits or anything like that. Gladius Task Force also has Armor of Content. That works the exact same as Firestorm Assault Force, where we want to save Armor of Content for those high AP attacks. In the fight phase, this becomes much stronger since it is more rare for multiple units to be charging one unit. The next stratagem I do want to mention is Adaptive Strategy for 1 CP. Select the Devastator Doctrine, the Tactical Doctrine, or the Assault Doctrine until the start of your next command phase. That combat doctrine is active for that unit instead of any other combat doctrine that is active for your army, even if you have already selected that doctrine this battle. The reasons I like combat doctrines are the same reasons I like this stratagem. For 1 CP, we can advance and shoot, advance and charge, or fall back and charge. Not every one of these will be useful every turn. It's the fact that this stratagem allows an Infernus Squad unit to do any one of those things when needed. A very powerful stratagem for 1 CP. Next up, on the chapter for 1 CP, used in the fight phase, 1 Adeptus Astartes unit from your army. Until the end of the fight phase, melee weapons equipped by models in your unit have the Lance ability. If your unit is under the effects of the Assault Doctrine until the end of the phase, improve the armor penetration of such weapons by 1 as well. The Infernus are not a melee combat unit. Lance +1 to the wound roll and AP 1 will really help them punch up if they need to. Having a strong melee character in the unit will help too. With that being said, unless we need to take a unit out in combat or charge an enemy unit on objective, this is better used on a melee focused unit. The next stratagem is only in Death Does Duty N for a big 2 CP. In the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, 1 Adeptus Astartes unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit is destroyed, if that model has not fought this phase, do not remove it from play. The destroyed model can fight after the attacking model's unit has finished making its attacks, and then it's removed from play. This is a fight on death. You don't need to roll for it, you just fight on death for 2 CP. It has to be used just after the enemy unit has selected its targets, so you can't wait until a bunch of your unit dies. It has to be used when your unit is selected. The Infernus Squad's melee output is not worth the 2 CP. Even with Ajax or Vulcan, unless them fighting on death will somehow change the course of the game, 2 CP is too expensive for the Infernus Squad. Even with a captain, I would not use it for the reduced 1 CP. I would save this on a melee-focused unit. Squad Tactics for 1 CP, your opponent's movement phase just after an enemy unit ends a normal, advanced, or fallback move. 1 Adeptus Astartes Infantry or Astartes mounted unit from your army that is within 9 inches of that enemy unit that just ended that move. Your unit can make a normal move up to D6 or a normal move up to 6 inches if that unit is under the effects of the Tactical Doctrine. There is a restriction. You cannot select a unit that is within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. Reactive moves are very powerful in 40k right now. We can use it to get out of line of sight, make charges harder, move on or off objectives, or even embark in a transport. There is a lot of utility with this stratagem. Unless the Infernus unit is in the Tactical Doctrine, this will be a D6 movement. With D6, we have to try to position our unit where even a low roll could move the unit into a better position. Do not depend on rolling a 5 or a 6 every time. Last up for the stratagems that do benefit the Infernus Squad and Gladius Task Force is Storm of Fire. For 1 CP in your shooting phase, 1 Adeptus Astartes unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by that models in your unit have the Ignores Cover ability. If your unit is under the effect of the Devastator Doctrine, until the end of the phase, improve the armor penetration of such weapons by 1 as well. This is a situational but potent stratagem for the Infernus Squad. The only time we would want to use this stratagem if the Infernus Squad was in the Devastator Doctrine. The Pyro-Blaster already ignores cover, we just want that extra AP1. D6 shots, AP2 from the stratagem, damage 1 with ignores cover, into the Oath of Moment target for +1 to the wound roll. If we really want to, we throw Vulcan's Forgefall ability on that target as well to re-roll the wound roll. It's barbecue time. The Infernus Squad is actually a pretty good unit in the Gladius Task Force, even more so if we are running the Salamanders with the Gladius Task Force. Once we include Adrax or Vulcan to a list, the Space Marine army is technically a Salamander's army, locking us from taking other chapter characters. 10 Infernus Marines pair very well with Vulcan Hastan in the Gladius Task Force, with plenty of useful stratagems and a place in a list as an anti-infantry unit. Vulcan Hastan will also boost each one of these Infernus Marines up to OC2. I have been using this unit in the Gladius Task Force. I have been really impressed by what I've been able to do with this unit. I have come to really like this unit. After the December 2024 Datasheet changes, they have been much better. A strong choice in the Firestorm Assault Force. I dare say they are better than the aggressors. Not as much melee threat, but cheaper for a 10-man unit with more overall shooting threat. Immolation Protocols or Crucible Battle can really make these shine as a damage-dealing unit. If you have not tried these out in your Salamanders list in a while, dust them off the shelf, throw Vulcan Hastan in the list. It's barbecue season. Subscribe for weekly battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content. Like always, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.